to Bart, Beatrice, Sophie, Peter, Michael. I think I'm not forgetting anybody for inviting me, and also to Sabrina, if she can hear me, for all the support. So the paper is joint work with Aina Gallego, who is here, and Massimo Nelli and Piero Stanage at Bocconi University. The title is What If You See It? So we look at workers' perceptions of and reactions to LLMs. Now, the two research questions that basically we tackle here are the following. So first of all, we ask, to what extent workers perceive LLMs as an opportunity, productivity enhancing rather than a threat, and what determines, whether you perceive it in one direction or the other. And secondly, the second research question is, to what extent this type of perceptions then influence a range of policy preferences and potentially also political preferences. So it's a survey experiment that we run. We didn't run it yet, so we're going to run it in Germany, Italy, and the US, where we focus on workers in 98 occupations that are exposed to LLM. Okay? So the novelty of the study is that we try to provide very tailored treatment. So it's an informational treatment where basically workers see ChatGPT at work. So ChatGPT performing the most frequent core task, which is specific to each occupation. Hence the title, what if you see it? We really try to see, if you get really detailed information about what ChatGPT could do in your work environment, what's going to be your reaction? So what are the outcomes we look at? Well, first of all, whether this has an impact on your assessment of what's going to be the effect of AI on your own work. So that is an outcome, but it's also key moderator for many of the hypotheses that we're going to test, where we're going to look at a bunch of outcomes like classical support for redistribution, unemployment benefits, early retirement, retraining, minimum wage. As just been discussed, we're going to look at trade protectionism and immigration, regulation of AI, the role of the government in all that. A few items on left-wing authoritarianism, which is one of the most fascinating things we are planning to explore. We have a question on feeling thermometer with respect to political parties, even though we believe that's kind of a long shot. But anyway, we're going to try and see what happens. And we look at the willingness to retrade by having also a behavioral item where we can see what workers do. Now, to give you an idea of the hypothesis, for instance, information about the impact of generative AI increases support for protectionism and barriers to immigration among those who perceive it as a threat. Okay, so the take-up of the video is really the key moderator here. We have other hypotheses like information about the impact of generative AI increases support for regulation among those who perceive it as a threat and reduces support among those who perceive it as an opportunity. So the take-up is going to be very important in all this. Okay, so how do we select the occupation? So we start from 3 available classifications, so Felton et al., Tolan et al., and Webb. They provide scores for the different occupations as to what extent they are exposed to LLMs. So we start with 3-digit SOC occupations. For each of them, we have a score from Felton, one from Tolan, one from Webb. We run a cluster analysis based on each occupation separately that delivers 2 groups, exposed versus non-exposed to LLMs. And then we select 39 3-digit occupations where at least 2 out of the 3 classifications will tell you, okay, this occupation is exposed. Give an idea, computer occupations will be a 3-digit occupation, financial specialists will be a 3-digit, but we think this is still too much aggregated, right? So we want to have a treatment which is even more narrowly defined. So what we do, we move from the 3-digit level to the 6-digit level of the SOC classification of occupations. And to give an idea, within financial specialists, you're going to have a different code for accountants and auditors, credit analysts, tax preparers. So that's the level where we want to provide the treatment. Now, within those 39 3-digit occupations that I was discussing before, you have 369 6-digit occupations. So now we have to select among those where we believe exposure to LLM is more important. How do we do that? So we select those occupations where the most frequent core task is directly automatable through ChatGPT. Now, how do we know what's the most frequent core task? Well, we get this information from ONET. How do we know whether this is automatable through ChatGPT or not? Well, we ask ChatGPT itself. Okay? So we base what we do on this paper by Elon Du and co-authors. So there is somebody from OpenAI that has been involved in the paper itself. So they have this rubric that you can use to ask ChatGPT, classify every occupation task pair into different categories. And there is one category we focus on that is directly exposed. What does it mean that a task is directly exposed? Well, ChatGPT tells you that is the case when, using ChatGPT, you can reduce the amount of time it takes to perform the task by at least 50% without compromising on quality. Okay? So we do that, and we identify these 176 six-digit SOC occupations where, I repeated, the most frequent core task is automatable through ChatGPT. Okay? Now, of course, preparing all the videos for 176 occupations, it's a very lengthy process. So in the end, we settled for 98 occupations that are most represented in the population, essentially. Okay, so this is about the selection of occupations. Now, how do we generate the video treatments? And again, we use ChatGPT. So first thing we do is the following. For every narrowly defined occupation, we create a GPT extension. Okay? And we train this extension of ChatGPT with all the information you can get about the occupations. For example, ONET has a lot of Excel files that you can upload where they describe, what are the skills that are required, what are the tasks, what is the importance of different tasks, and anything else you can imagine. Then there is also Career One Stop, which is another website that provides video descriptions of careers in the different occupations. We scrape it, and then we upload it also to the GPT extension. And then we ask the GPT extension to conceive a hypothetical scenario in which ChatGPT will perform the most frequent core task of the given occupation. ChatGPT comes with a proposal. Sometimes it's 2 proposals or 3 proposals. And then, we engage in some interaction with ChatGPT to narrow it down. All these interactions is very standard, but anyway, it's saved and will be made available together with all the other data of the paper. So once the scenario has been identified, then we go to the next step, and we tell ChatGPT, how would you describe this hypothetical scenario to ChatGPT to ensure that it effectively carries out the task? So ChatGPT proposes the scenario, and then we say, how would you ask the question to yourself to show that you can deliver this task? And then, we launch the prompt, and we record both the prompt and the answer of ChatGPT, and we make a video through OBS Studio. So this is done first in English, and then it's translated in German and Italian. To make it more effective, we vocalize the entire conversation, and, we do it both with a male voice and with a female voice. As Yotam was saying before, we want to avoid any kind of bias that could be related to getting a male treatment or a female treatment, so this is going to be randomized. Every video lasts for about 1.5 minutes. So let me show you an example. This is accountants and auditors. So if you're an accountant and auditor and you're treated, this is what you're going to see. It's here.
Imagine you are an accountant tasked with analyzing business operations for ABC Manufacturing, Inc. Attached is an Excel file with quarterly financials, revenue, expenses, commitments, operational costs, costs by category, revenue streams, revenue by stream, commitments, loan, lease payments, other obligations, market trends, market growth, inflation, interest rates. You should analyze revenue and expense trends, calculating key financial ratios. Project future revenues and expenses based on historical data and market trends. Assess the impact of commitments on cash flows and provide strategic advice. Include graphs and charts.
ChatGPT response.
The analysis of ABC Manufacturing, Inc. revealed key financial trends and projections. Revenue and expenses have shown a consistent increase over the past quarters, with a profit margin averaging around 40%. Future projections indicate continued growth in revenue and expenses aligned with market growth and inflation rates. Commitments, including loan repayments, lease payments, and other obligations, significantly impact cash flow, necessitating strategic planning to ensure liquidity. The charts provide a clear visual representation of these trends and projections, aiding in informed decision-making.
So this is what you see. And by the way, all the data, the Excel file, everything is generated by ChatGPT, so we're not doing anything here. That's part of the creation of the scenario that I was referring to earlier on. So, talking about the design, as I said, we have these three countries, Germany, Italy, and the United States. We have 2,000 respondents per country, and this is observations that we can really pull together because we are using YouGov, the proprietary panel of YouGov in the three countries at the same time. At the beginning, you declare what's your occupation. So if you are in one of the 98 selected occupations, you stay in the survey, otherwise you drop out. Now, 50% of the respondents randomly are treated. So they watch the video, a video like the one I showed. 50% of respondents go in the control group. And the control group is split in two equally sized arms. So some people get no video, some other people get a placebo video. And we were thinking a lot about what to show in the placebo video, so this is what we came up with. So any feedback on this is going to be super welcome. Essentially about the International Space Station. So it's a video about technology, but with no direct immediate implications on the labor market.
There are about 8 billion people living on Earth. That's a lot of people. But did you know that at this very moment there is a small group of people who don't live on Earth? They live in space, aboard the International Space Station. The International Space Station, also known as the ISS, is a large satellite that orbits our planet. It's the biggest man-made object in space and is roughly the size of a football field. That's pretty big. The ISS travels at an incredible speed of about 27,000 kilometers per hour. In just one day, it orbits the Earth 16 times. Since the year 2000, up to 9 astronauts and cosmonauts have been on board the ISS at any one time. They are highly trained to live and work in space. You can think of the ISS as a giant science laboratory in space. Each day, the people on board carry out investigations about living in space for long periods of time. The data collected on board the ISS is sent back to Earth and shared with many different countries. Amazing accomplishments like the International Space Station are only possible when large groups of people work together and share their knowledge and scientific data. I can't wait to see what's in store for the future. Maybe a space station on Mars?
So, I have 3 minutes left, so let me move on to a couple of comments, and then I'm waiting for your feedback on the placebo video. So, two issues I want to mention. One is symmetry. So we believe that this treatment we are making is symmetric in the sense that you always see ChatGPT performing the most frequent core task of your occupation. So symmetry comes from that. But you can imagine that, you may be wondering, okay, effectively, people in different occupations, they are watching different videos. Okay? And that's a feature, not a bug, we believe, of our study, because we want to be very tailored, with the kind of treatment that we provide. But still, we see the point that there could be potential heterogeneity in the treatment. So we can control for a range of characteristics, both of the occupation that we are automating with ChatGPT and characteristics of the video, like how long it is, or even though they are pretty much all similar, or how effective it is. We can rely on independent ratings of effectiveness. But mostly what we are planning to do in this respect is include a battery of fixed effects for every occupation that we're going to interact with the treatment dummy. So basically, that interaction is going to be the treatment specific to any given specific occupation. And then, the average treatment effect will be an average of all those estimated coefficients on the interactions plus the linear term. The very final thing is, what about stratification? The video is not supposed to tilt all people in one direction. So if you take two respondents within the same occupation, they watch exactly the same video, But one could be tilted in a positive way concerning the impact of AI, because you see, okay, I can be much more productive than before, that's great. One could be tilted more in a negative direction because you're more afraid of substitution. Okay? So, understanding which type of direction you take is already one of the, we believe, big contributions of the paper, understanding, what are the personality traits and other conditions that can push you in one direction or the other. But also, as I say, this is going to be very important for, testing the other hypotheses. So stratification is very important. How are we going to do that? Well, the main thing we have in mind is this. So if you're treated, after the video, you get this question, would you say that watching this video has made you more positive or more negative about how generative AI will impact your occupation than you were before? Right? So this is asked only to the treated respondents. We can, fine-tune a model that predicts, if you're tilted in one direction or the other, and then, as done by AINA encoders in a previous paper, use the estimated parameters to estimate the answer for the control respondents, and then stratify both treated and controlled based on this predicted reaction to the video itself. That's one possibility. Another possibility could be, and then I'm really done, working with questions that are not asked in differences, let's say, but more in levels, like, do you feel threatened by generative AI? Now, this is something we're going to ask both controlled and treated respondents. And then you can use, for example, the controls to estimate the parameters of the model that allows you to estimate the basic predisposition also for treated people. You can call it M0, and stratify both treated and controlled based on this predisposition to generative AI. Or, you can use the treated to estimate the potential ex post evaluation of generative AI also for control respondents, call it M1, and then stratify based on the difference between M1 and M0. Anyway, if you want to talk more about it, we can do it in the question time. Any feedback, super welcome. We want to pre-register in a few days, and then we're ready to go with the videos. Thank you very much.
Very good, very good.
Thank you.
Questions and comments. Victor?
Some observations. So here's an anecdote. In the 80s, the ATM machine was introduced, and we have more bank tellers than we could have ever dreamt of. The nominal label bank teller is the same, but what they do, their tasks are totally different. Bank tellers go from taking money, deposits, or giving money out to customers to like softer things, upselling, whatever it is that folks are going in to chat to bank tellers about, they're doing a lot of that, right? So my first reaction to this is, well, the label accountant might stay the same, but your skills or tasks are going to be completely different. And you can be totally agnostic, and I think you are, because it's...
We are.
Yeah. I just think it's an interesting thing to think about, the dynamics of this, right? With the nominal label versus the reality of what might happen on the ground, right?
Absolutely.
And if anything, the demand for accountants could go up because the price of accountants will go down due to this automation of the repetitive task, right? The other thing I would say, also compatible, when you're an accountant or you're anything, it's not really about your tasks per se. It's about a multi-dimensional package of things you do. So you do tasks, but you also maintain the capital stock and reputation of the firm. You train new workers, you coordinate activities, you manage, and then there's like 1,000 other things employers ask you to do on the fly, and you figure it out, right? So again, I think you can be agnostic, but like maybe there's an assumption, maybe not your assumption, but there is an assumption sometimes that occupations are tantamount to tasks, but it's not additive, it's multiplicative, and there's so many dimensions, right? So those are just things you might keep in mind, maybe when you interpret the results, or if you get a surprising result, maybe folks on the ground understand this in a richer way about all these other elements.
Thanks, Italo. Cool project. A few questions. One, you very quickly jumped into what you're doing and didn't really spend time on the motivation. So I'd like to hear a little what's the importance of when you see it, or what exactly do you think is the importance of getting at it? Yeah. Then a couple other questions. So first of all, I would think that given what I think is your motivation, we'd at least want to see some control where you do a generic video just showing AI performing some tasks, all right? So we'll have some baseline of you showing me generative AI doing something, replacing some task in some occupation that is not necessarily mine, and have that as the baseline to see, okay, is your effort of really pinpointing my own occupation as the comparison, like how much of that is different? Then also in terms of, I was a little unsure whether the current control that you've got with the space thing, whether it's a good one, because you'd imagine that part of the issue is I think that some people might be quite disappointed when they see your video of what AI does, and they'll say, oh, this is actually not that good of a job it does in what I actually do, and so maybe I'm less threatened. Whereas if you give me this real upside of, scientific achievements in space, maybe I still think that generative AI can do a lot more in replacing my occupation. So maybe it's actually setting you up in a way to find less of an effect because, it's actually highlighting the ability of technology in ways that I'm not sure are conducive to what you're doing. And the last thing is I'm not sure about the last question that you said, would you say that watching video has made you more positive or negative about how generative AI will impact your occupation than you were before? It's not clear. What does it mean to be more positive or negative? So if I saw that it's doing a crappy job, am I now more positive because it's not going to replace me? Or is it when if I'm doing, so I'm not sure that this answer, the way that you're asking this is going to be informative what you really want to know. So, thanks.
If you want to take a second to reply to those.
I can, yeah, sure. First of all, I agree with everything you said, Victor. So thank you very much. And we are completely agnostic in the sense that, we believe that faced with exactly the same video, people may really think about it in different ways. Concerning, this multidimensionality and multiplicative nature of tasks, absolutely, we are also going to ask people ex post, what they think about the task they have seen automated, whether it's something that they really perform often, whether it's something that contributes to the pride of their job, etc., just in order to take those type of considerations into account. So absolutely very well taken. So Yotam, on the motivation, I didn't want to spend time on that because I wanted to have the comments that you gave me next. I think, given the context, it's even kind of redundant, but of course we can talk more about it. We believe that, previous papers on automation and robotization were looking at a certain type of people that will be more exposed, whereas, the type of people that are exposed to LLMs may be even radically different in terms of education, background. So, understanding how this type of technology shock may change their policy preferences and potentially their political preferences, we believe, it is valuable in itself. Concerning whether we want to give a generic AI treatment to everybody, I'm not sure that is a good idea, but of course, it's something we're going to consider. Concerning your comment on the space, I absolutely agree. We have been trying to think about it. If you have a better suggestion, please go ahead. Because, we wanted it to be something about technology, but, more vague, that doesn't constitute immediately a threat. And then what? It's really difficult to say. If you don't do something about technology and you say you were using the fashion industry, I think, people could say, but, this is, funny video, so you are priming people in a funnier direction, so I wouldn't really know. But it's fine that you say that these would potentially diminish the treatment effect, because anyway, you are prompting people to think about technology in some way. But let's talk more, please.
Let's do one more round of questions.
Yeah.
All right, really excited to see this. It'll be really cool.
Thank you.
Couple sort of quick fire thoughts. So one is, I don't want to tinker with your design sensor pre-register, but I was wondering to what extent you were using, post-chat GPT automation risk scores. Sounds like in your
Sorry, can you say it again?
If you're using sort of post-chat GPT automation risk measures versus the sort of the 2021 and earlier, and in particular, I'm wondering if you are including low risk jobs at low automation risk or just jobs at high automation risk, because I thought that might be relevant.
Okay.
I had the same instinct as you, Tom, regarding the videos. So one is I had the same thought about having a generic AI can automate jobs video that looks very structurally similar, so just plus one vote for that. And you may have thought about it for other reasons that you don't prefer that. I don't know if you need the other placebo video at all. We just ran one of these. We did a pre-test to see if there was any difference between no video and a placebo video about the Westminster Dog Show, and there was no difference, so we decided to save the survey takers 1.5 minutes of time. But if you are going to do a video, a way to make it more similar would be to have like a ChatGPT like interface instead of a video with satellites in the Earth. So you could be like, ChatGPT, like tell me about my birthday party or something, and you record that instead. And then otherwise, I think there's a lot of really great hypotheses about subgroups that you can do for this, given all the stuff we've talked about the last day.
Thanks a lot.
Let's take one more.
So yeah, I mean, just a third vote for making another a control that is ChatGPT that's not personalized. So I mean, I think it feels like what you're doing here is putting a lot of emphasis on the personalization aspect here in your treatments.
Yep.
And I'm looking for kind of the control group would be, I think, something like ChatGPT that it can do that's not personalized. I think that's a harder test. And if you're really going to place the emphasis on personalization, that's the test that you want to show that you've achieved, or not, or
But let's look.
On personalization, right? So I guess what I think you're going to try to extract is people's perceptions about whether they're a winner or a loser with these new technologies. But there's the big leap then from there theoretically to the long laundry list of social and political outcomes that you plan on studying. And I'm just wondering a little bit more about the kind of the mental model that you envision here, why it is that if someone thinks they're a winner in technology, then they're going to be more or less opposed to immigration and what have you, all the rest of the outcome variables that you plan to look at. So I think really what you're going to be able to achieve here is that personalization and the perception of winning and losing. But again, I'd like to see more of a theoretical development once you get to these outcomes.
I mean, in 15 minutes, I could not cover everything. And I wanted to get comments on this rather than on that, but that's very welcome. So let me, maybe start answering you, Stephen. So I think it really changes the paper, right? And I go back also to the point by Yotam. So is the point to show what's the effect of getting tailored information rather than basic information about ChatGPT? Is that what we are after? Not really. I mean, we're more interested in getting a treatment which is better than just telling, 50% of jobs will disappear. What do you think about restricting immigration, right? So we believe that there is already a first order effect in providing you meaningful information on ChatGPT. We believe that this meaningful information is an information that relates to what you do every day in a very precise way. So, it changes a little bit the way you think about the paper, right? So what you have in mind is something that, of course, we could do in this or in another project, and that would be, to me, more of a second order thing. I'm showing ChatGPT producing a song or a poem for your wife, which is the very first thing I did with ChatGPT, actually, write a poem for my wife. Rather than, not. But anyway, you're already, I think diluting what you are doing from my point of view. So in terms of your points, maybe we could consider not having a placebo video. So just having a control group, they get no video, and that's it. Although, the critique that you may get is that, okay, the treatment is not about the information you're providing in the video, but it's the video itself, right? I think it would be a bit unfair as a critique, but it's obvious that you could get this type of reaction. So, having a video is needed. I think showing a video of ChatGPT, producing a poem would again change the nature of the study. Then it will be the tailored treatment rather than the generic treatment of ChatGPT, and that's not really what we want to do. So we have to think more about actually what to show. And concerning the information on the exposure to generative AI, I'm not sure if I get your question right, but we start from these 3 available classifications, and those are produced in 2021, 2019. And then, there is the paper by Elon Doe that has this rubric, E1, E0, E2, E3, whatever. And then we just run it on every occupation task combination, and we get the answer of ChatGPT, and that's what we use. So we're not imposing anything. It's really ChatGPT telling us it's you directly exposed or not. So I think I'm going to stop here. Thank you.
Thanks very, very much.
Thank you. Thank you.